All right, everybody, welcome back. Totally Driven Radio. And Nick, wow, it's time. Are you ready for this one? I'm so freaking psyched for this. All right, here we go, everybody. The one, the only, Mr. Bob Zmuda. Bob, welcome to Totally Driven Radio.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you for coming on, because, I mean, I got to tell you, this is no BS. I am so interested in this whole, your new book and the whole, with that Andy is still alive.
Yep.
It just so fascinates me. And last year when there was that scenario with Andy's brother and that girl came out and she said that I'm Andy's daughter and he's alive, I was so freaking excited. I was like, yes. And we were live that night, and I was so freaking excited. I was just like, yes.
And that was totally phony.
Yeah, like.
Yeah. So now I come out with the truth, and people going, "Oh, bullshit."
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. Like, I was going through, I'm reading reviews on Amazon about the book last night, and a lot of people are kind of torn. Like, on one hand, they're like, Bob brings up a lot of good points. It's very interesting, but I don't think it's true. Or, and you're getting a lot of flack over this book.
Listen, it's very hard to believe it's true that a guy would actually fake his death for 30 years, Andy Kauffman, but it is true. As you know, I was Andy's writer and best friend. I was his writer for 10 years. I was his only writer. And back in 1984 is when he supposedly died. Starting around 1981 is when he started planning on pulling off the greatest hoax of all time, which was faking his death, and he did.
Now, what was the main reason he wanted to do this? As a joke, or just to get out of the limelight?
Well, a little of both, actually. As you know, he was known, Andy goes down in history as the guy that pulled off the most elaborate pranks. You remember Jerry Lawler and the wrestling and all that
Sure,
Andy
absolutely.
made believe that Jerry really hurt him and he had to wear a neck brace for 6 months, which wasn't true. And then he had the Tony Clifton lounge lizard character that he started doing, and then soon gave it to me to do. And I did it for about 15 years under the radar. I did David Letterman 4 times as Tony Clifton, and each time Letterman thought that underneath the prosthetic makeup, it was Andy Kauffman. So we were known for these elaborate pranks that would go on. And finally, he said, what it started? It started around the time when Elvis died. And then those rumors started, he really faked his death. They said the same thing about Michael Jackson and Jim Morrison and all that. And Andy said, but could you imagine if a celebrity really did this, Bob, how big it would be? And I said, it'd be pretty awesome. And he says, I'm going to do it. And then it took him about 3 years to figure out exactly how to do it and pull it off. And he pulled it off successfully, because today, here I am 30 years later telling everybody he pulled it off, he faked his death, and people have a tendency not to believe me. And I can't be mad because of the fact that 30 years ago I helped him do it.
Now, okay, so when you guys first started talking about this, and then Andy wanted to put this into reality, and I mean, this was talked about for 3 years, and you guys planned for 3 years. What was the actual plan? I mean,
he wanted, the idea was to fake his death, to pull off the greatest hoax, and come back 30 years later. But he had to figure out how to do it. At first, he thought he'd call me up and say, "Hey." He said, "Bob, how do I get my hands on a cadaver?" I said, "Well, you got to go to medical schools, have them, but there's going to be a lot of paperwork." And he said, "Well, that's not going to work." I said, "That's right, I said, if you had a body," he said, "Well, what are you thinking of?" He says, "Well, I was thinking if it was a car wreck, I could get a body, throw a dead body, somebody who's dead already, buy a cadaver and throw it in there." And I said, "Well, there's going to be dental records." And he says, "Well, can't I knock out a few of my teeth?" And I said, "No, Andy, that's not going to work. They have X-rays of the whole jaw." So then he thought about it. A few months later, he'd call me up and say, "Oh, I got it." He said, "I'm lost at sea." He says, "Nobody, there will be nobody." I said, "Andy, nobody believes you now in anything you do. You need a body. And then about 2 years later, he called me up, and he came up with a really brilliant idea. He said, you not only need a body, he said, you know what, I have to actually appear sick, be sick. He said, I'm going to come down with cancer. I said, how are you going to do that? He said, he's going to find a fan that was dying of cancer, a fan of his that was dying of cancer, and he finally did, and that's who he used to substitute him at Cedars-Sinai Hospital.
But now, wasn't his girlfriend Lynn supposedly there
Lynn
when he passed away?
I wrote the book with Lynn Margulies, right. Now, Lynn, of course, this was the two big things, the problems I had it emotionally. And when he finally decided he was going to do it, I said, Andy, okay, I can't be involved in this now. And he said, what do you mean? I said, Andy, it's illegal to fake your death. I said, people do it all the time. Child support, alimony, they want to rip off the insurance company. I said, what you're doing is illegal. So I'm going to step away from this now. I think it's a great idea, but I'm pulling back. So I said, I cannot get involved. I do not want to get involved legally of pulling off a crime. I told him this. And I said, and the other thing I'm having a little hard time with is Lynn, your lover, Lynn Margulies, who in the movie was played by Courtney Love. Paul Giamatti plays me in Man on the Moon. I produced the film with Danny DeVito. And what happened is I said, and besides Lynn, I said, I'm not going to lie to your mother that you're dead when you're not. Don't ask me to do that, Andy, I'm not. So I told him that I thought what he needed to do, he had decided he was not going to tell Lynn. He wanted, and to this day, Lynn believes that Andy Kauffman actually died. Okay? And unless she's lying, but she, the whole idea was that she needed to go on with her life. He was going to take on a whole new life. So as far as but the big concern was the mom, and I don't know. I didn't tell. She passed away about 2 years after Andy did, supposedly did, and I hope that he told her. But at that point I was out of it. And now we're working with Mitchell Silverberg and Knupp, which is one of the biggest law firms in Hollywood, to have Andy come back and not be charged with the crime. In other words, he'll have to give the money back because we know there was at least 4, if not 5, major death benefits played out. He was a member of the Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, Writers Guild, Producers Guild. There was a hefty payoff from he was on the show Taxi, and his own personal family thing. So there was a lot of money paid out here. So the idea is the money is given back, of course with interest, and they feel that Andy was not doing, and he did not do this for money. He did this to make an artistic point. So so far the discussions are going good. So when he comes back and steps on stage for the first time, he's not cuffed and taken away to the pokey.
So are you saying you have been in touch with Andy?
No, I have not talked to Andy Kauffman in 30 years. I want to make that clear. Okay, I have to do this for legal reasons. And not only that, I really didn't, because the deal was that's it. If you're going to do this, there's no communication at all. There's no way of tracing anything to anyone. So that was the deal. But he did say, when Lynette Margulies asked him, the love of his life, she said, okay, Andy, you're going to do this. How long are you going to be gone for, a year or two? And he laughed. Okay? He laughed. He said, if I was a little boy about it, it'd be a year or two. He said, if I'm going to be a man about it, which I am, it's going to be 30 years. He supposedly died 1984. Here we are, 2014. It's 30 years. That's the only reason I'm opening my mouth now, because he put a date and a time limit on this one. I don't want him back, and when he does come back, it will be the biggest showbiz event in your and my lifetime.
I hope you're right. I really do. I would love to see this happen.
I'm hoping to. Matter of fact, that's why I'm talking to you now. I'm putting the word out there. I did not make any money on this book. I got no advance. If you know about books, if you don't get an advance on a book, you ain't going to make a nickel. And I hired a publicist. That's why I'm talking to you and whatnot. He said 30 years, I was his best friend. I'm using you and the book as a telegram to Andy Kauffman. It's time to come in from out of the rain, my friend.
Wow. Now, going back in time again, when you guys were talking about this, did he have a plan of like where he was going to go, what he was going to do?
He had some idea. I told him not to tell me, and he knew that was the case. I will tell you this, though. I believe like he would play it like Osama bin Laden. He would be hiding in plain sight. I think he would get knowing Andy, he would get too much of a thrill to actually be in his own backyard. Of course, this is 30 years. So the man would probably be bald now. He probably had grown a beard, possibly, put on a lot of weight. You wouldn't even know it's Andy Kauffman.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you being a good friend of Andy's, I mean, 30 years is a long time. I mean,
it is.
It's kind of like you have lost your friend, and he did die, saying if he is still alive. But, I mean, did you go through, like, a mourning process yourself, or have you just held on to this?
You got to realize, being his writer for 10 years, and he really goes down in history, he's legendary now. He's absolutely legendary. Many, many people believe he did fake his death. This has been going on for years now. And he was an artist. So this was his work. This was his dream. This was his Mount Everest, was to pull this off. And he's now pulled it off successfully, and it's time for him to come back.
Now, are you – I mean, we've already passed the 30-year anniversary. Are you setting, like, a deadline for this? And
how can I? It's in his hands.
Right.
He said 30 years, so I'm thinking the clock now has started. It is May 16th was 30 years. So I'm hoping, and we're in the book, I put a few carrots out there, Bay, is what I've done. I'm working with Hookah, which is, as you know, HUCA, which is one of the biggest concert promoters in the country. And AJ, who runs that, is putting a cool $2 million on the table, and every penny of that goes in Andy Kaufman's pocket, just if he walks on stage for 90 seconds. He doesn't even have to perform. Now, I don't know if he's a Buddhist monk now. I don't know if he's married and have kids, if he's thinking about their future. There's $2 million there. Or if he wants to give this money away to charity, he could do that. So I think we're making it, we're going through the legal thing where he will not be arrested, but and he'll put $2 million. Besides that, when that happens, what's going to happen the next Saturday after that? Saturday Night Live is going to have him host.
Right.
We were working on a script for Universal Studios called the Tony Clifton story. I've been talking to executives at Universal. They said if Andy Kauffman reappears, that film goes immediately into production. So he's got to decide now. He's got to make that decision. Okay, there's a lot of these things out there. I'm telling you, this will be as big, if not bigger, than the Beatles' appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're investing not only a lot of time and effort in this, but a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm in this for about $50,000 already.
At least you can laugh at it, right?
But listen, I hope when he does return that he does allow me to produce his shows. So I think I'll be okay at the end of the day. It's fascinating. It's amazing.
But I mean, like you're saying, you're talking to lawyers, you're talking to promoters, you're getting all your ducks in a row. You're getting everything situated and set and ready to roll.
I'm making it so it's going to be very hard for him not to want to come back. And remember, he only has to step on stage for 90 seconds to get the $2 million. He can go back and
can we get 2 minutes out of him and have him do Mickey Mouse again? I used to love that.
I don't know. He doesn't. According to this, he doesn't have to do anything, and that was Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have to do anything. Of course, there will be DNA testing and everything to prove that it's him.
No,
but I'll know it's him because I'll know it's him because he's my best friend. Just like if you had a best friend for that many years, you would talk to him about certain things in a closed room that only you and him would know. I'm going to know immediately. The public's not going to believe it until We do some fingernail clippings. We've looked into this, some DNA, and so when he shows up, it will be him.
Now, I myself, I'm a person that has no patience. I would be, if I was you, I'd be going freaking nuts, like in anticipation and in waiting.
Well, I'm very excited, as you could tell.
Yeah, but I mean, I would go as far as like, how can I go and dig his grave up? That's the way I would say.
Well, listen, my friend, I'm glad you said that. This is something that I am pursuing. Listen, if people want to say Bob Zmuda is BSing here, I say to the family, very simple, 20 minutes with a backhoe, you could dig up that casket, you could open it up, get some hair and bone scrapings, and you'll know if that's Andy Kauffman there or not. The family's not going to do it because they know it's not him. And there's no body even in there, I would doubt.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been trying to get that. I've been appealing to the insurance companies that paid all this money, and I've called up SAG, Screen Actors Guild, the Producers Guild, the Writers Guild, say, guys, how much did you pay? They won't give me the figure, but I know it was hefty. I said, get your money back. All of you guys get together. It's cost you $800 to get only $800 to get backhoe over to the cemetery with the local state coroner. They get about, with the filings and everything, $800, and this could all be over. And if he's in there and if that's his body, nobody's going to buy one more book of mine, and that would be fine by me. Open that goddamn casket.
I'm with you. Oh, and that would have saved you $49,000.
Yeah. Oh, I've tried. I've been talking. Yeah, they don't want to do it. Of course they don't want to do it.
Wow. Now, what about his the family? What do they think by? I mean, you writing a book and going on this.
Well, listen, they're not happy about it, but I'm being honest, and Lynn's being. They actually have more difficulty with Lynn than they do with me. There's been some legal things because of some possessions of his and whatnot, But Michael Kaufman, like you said, about a year ago, is when Michael came forward with this girl who he believed was Andy's daughter. And so therefore, and she would have been the age. She was the age where Andy. This would have been 10 years after his supposed death that she was born. So obviously, Michael Kaufman believes his brother is still alive, or he never would have got sucked in by that scam.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was reading something the other night about that, and where he was saying he wants to believe so bad, and he allowed himself to get sucked in by that.
Well, he believed it, and he was at the bedside when Andy supposedly died at Cedars-Sinai Hospital.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that raises a flag right there. If he was at the bedside and he wants to believe, well, what's that? I mean, something's not right there. You know what I mean?
Remember, this is how Andy did it. Andy got himself a cancer patient who was a fan of his that was going to die. That is the person that went to Cedars-Sinai Hospital. He was made to look like Andy Kauffman through using prosthetic makeup, the same makeup technique that was used on me for 15 years to fool the American public into thinking that I was Tony Clifton and that underneath the prosthetics it was Andy Kauffman. The last time I had done Letterman turned to me, and remember, I'm in this prosthetic makeup. And Letterman turns to me during the commercial break and says, Andy, if I didn't know it was you, I'd swear it was somebody else. And it was Bob Zmuda. So this is something that we've perfected over many, many years. And I'm telling you, now let me get one thing straight here, Bay, right? Mm-hmm. Andy Kauffman could be dead. For all I know, he got hit by a bus last week. I don't know, but I will tell you this. 30 years ago, he faked his death.
Wow. Okay. Now, going back to the situation that happened last year with Andy's brother Michael.
Well,
and
I don't know
girl.
much about it. I was out of the country at the time, but I know it created quite a stir. And why did that happen? It created quite a stir because at the time, 30 years ago, at the time of Andy's supposed death, 85% of the population did not believe it. I asked Jeff Conaway, who was on the TV show Taxi with Andy. I said, Jeff, why is it you didn't show up at his funeral? You know, with the rest of and the whole Taxi cast, not one of them showed up. And Jeff Conaway looked me straight in the eye and he said, Bob, we believed at the time that Andy Kauffman was pulling a prank, and we were not about to get on a plane and go all the way to the East Coast to a funeral that he would step out behind a curtain and start laughing.
Wow.
At the same time, a good friend of his, Cindy Williams from Laverne and Shirley, Cindy said when it was announced that Andy Kauffman had died, her husband came in the room and said, Cindy, I got some very bad news for you, because she was good friends with Andy, and he said it was just reported that Andy Kauffman died at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. She said she broke into the biggest laugh and said to her husband, don't believe it. There are many, many people in Hollywood that do not believe that Andy Kauffman is dead. I, as his writer, for the first time after 30 years, is finally admitting that's right. It's true. He did fake it, and I helped him fake it with him.
Now, you were saying about the Taxi cast.
Yes.
I mean, you guys worked with Danny DeVito on the movie. What's his feelings on it? Do you know?
I produced the movie with Danny DeVito.
Right.
Okay, I produced that movie, and that movie ends, if you recall, that movie ends with the last shot is Tony Clifton is on stage 1 year after the funeral scene where Andy supposedly died and is buried. 1 year later, Tony Clifton gets on stage. Now, in the movie, we see that Tony Clifton was also played by me, Bob Zmuda, who in the film I'm portrayed by Paul Giamatti. So the last shot, you see Tony on stage at the Comedy Store performing, and this actually happened in real life. And then the camera, Milos Forman directed the film, he pans across the room, and the last shot is you see me, played by Paul Giamatti, in the audience, applauding and smiling, and the film goes to black. So this has been out there for a long time now. Finally, I'm not getting any younger, my friend. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, December 12th, I'm 65 years old. Lynn's up there in age 2, and we decided that we were going to come clean, and it's time for Andy to return.
Wow. I'm with you. Come on, Andy. Yep. Come out. We know
you're
out.
Come on, man.
Now, going back to the question I was going to ask about the situation that happened last year with his brother and this girl and all.
Yes.
What was your initial feelings when you heard about it?
You know what? I was in Thailand at the time, so I missed the whole thing. I didn't hear about it till about 2 months later when I came back.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know much. I didn't know much about it. I do know that it was proven to be false, and that Michael did get sucked in by this girl. So that's my point. So I think there's a lot going on with the Kaufman family that they're not talking about. There's a lot of money at stake here. A lot of insurance policies were paid to that family. There's no way that they want to open up that crypt. I'm hoping that the insurance companies will do it, but hopefully before that, Andy reappears and that will become mute.
We got a couple calls. I don't know if you want to take them. One is a person who says he has evidence that Andy is alive, and the other one says...
I don't want to hear that.
Okay.
I don't know. A lot of times, the only thing I'm going to believe is if Kaufman gets in contact with me personally. Do you know how many people are out there claiming they've seen Kaufman and this and that? And you know what? Probably a certain percentage of it is true. But no, right. I don't want to get into that. I'm not going to, and not to insult the person.
Right. And there's another guy saying he's the bastard son of Tony.
Well, that could be.
You want me to take that one or no?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I'm trying to be serious here, and
No, I know.
But I love the fans that they're out there, and and listen, it's amazing. Here we are, 30 years after the event, and everybody is still talking about Andy Kauffman. More people are Googling and talking about Andy Kauffman now than they talk about Frank Sinatra. Is that amazing?
You're right.
So this is just going to be so huge, just so huge when he comes back.
I agree. Now, there was actually.
Then I got to run pretty soon because, believe it or not, I'm going to see Mort Saul tonight. You remember Mort Saul?
No.
You probably don't even know. Mort Saul was a big political satirist in the 60s and 70s, and he's going to walk on stage in about 20 minutes at 7 here. So I got like 5 more minutes with you. Then I got to run.
Okay.
So ask away.
You had your own death hoax a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, isn't that weird? And I had nothing to do with that. That was a Andy Kauffman fan and a Tony Clifton fan and obviously a Bob Zmuda fan. And the guy, he mocked up, I'm from Chicago, he mocked up the obit in the Chicago Sun-Times and put it out there, and people believed it. And it just goes to show you, and I mean, my sister was hysterical. A lot of people called, they were, they're brokenhearted. And until I finally found out, then I called everybody. I said, no, this is a whole scam. But think of it this way. Look at it this way, babe. If this guy could do that today with everything, when everybody's got a little camera and they got this and that, and nobody checked it, and that's today. And if I would have stayed in hiding, people would have thought that I did die. But I thought that was too cruel of a joke to play on people. So when I heard about it, I said, no, right away. I got myself out there and said, I'm very much alive. But look at that. With all this technology we have now, nobody went back and checked in the Chicago Sun-Times to see if that was real. And that's today. So you can imagine what Andy was able to do 30 years ago when there was none of that around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick, too, the Greg Fitzsimmons interview you did last month with him where you stormed off.
Oh, he's an idiot. Yeah. What's wrong with that guy?
A lot of people were saying they felt it was staged, like an a la Andy.
See, nowadays, everybody is so jaded. I'm out there now telling people, I helped Andy fake his death 30 years ago. I'm coming clean and go, oh, no, he's not telling the truth. Anything that's said or anything I do, people say, "Oh no, that's not true." Either way, what are you going to do? That guy is a jerk, though. I'll tell you that much. He is. Yeah.
I never had the pleasure, so I'm not going to say.
You're lucky.
And your book. Where can everybody get the book?
Well, the book is called Andy Kauffman, The Truth Finally. Amazon, it's in all bookstores by Bob Zmuda, Z-M-U-D-A, and Lynn Margulies. And like I said, Lynn was the love of his life, and I was Andy's best friend and his writer for 10 years.
Well, there you go, everybody. Go to Amazon and get the book. I'm getting it, so you should. And if I can get you to cut a quick ID for me before I let you go.
Sure, absolutely.
This is Bob Zmuda. If you want to spice it up a little, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Totally Driven Radio. Okay, let's do it.
Go for it.
Hey, this is Bob Zmuda, and you are listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob.
Got it, great.
And
Thanks,
I hope this all comes out and happens. And
you'll hear about it, but trust me, great.
Awesome. Thanks again for calling in, and good luck with everything. And we hope to see you.
I'd stay longer if I didn't have to see Mort Saul.
That's all right. Go do your thing. Thanks, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, there he goes. What do you think, Nick? Let me take Nick off hold here. What do you think, Nick?
Remember that Zmuda is ZM. You are full of shit. Okay. I feel bad right now. Like you could hear in his voice that he really truly believed what he was saying, and that makes me sad. Because what it sounds like is a guy whose best friend died, and he doesn't want to let it go.
you know, and that was one of the things, and one of my notes I actually had written down, like, did you write this book as a way of, you know, like, A, holding on to the fact that maybe Andy is still alive because you don't want to let go, or B, you're trying to keep the memory of Andy alive? You know what I mean? Like,
that's, I mean, I can understand that. You know what I mean? Like, I can get that. You know, he lost a friend and he just doesn't want to believe it. You know what I mean? But here's the thing. It's you know, December 11th, so there's only so many more weeks left in December. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Actually, Janetti's calling. Let's get Janetti on here. Janetti, what do you did you listen to the interview?
I did.
And what do you think?
I did. I was the one that got writing credit for that joke. But the thing is, and it does. All he has to do to prove that he's not lying or full of shit is to get Andy out here. That's all he has to do. It's easy. If this isn't a hoax, where is he? That's it. Right. So until he comes out, I mean, because he could be dead. He could be dead somewhere. He could have died 10 years or 5 years or a year after all this crap happened. Nobody would know.
Yeah, but see, isn't that the best sort of scapegoat for the whole thing? Like, dude, I totally helped him, but he could have had a heart attack. I mean, that's like a way of saying, ha, you can't prove I'm wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can. They can go in and dig his ass up out of the whatever thing they have down there and prove that it wasn't him that went in the ground first off.
I say we do it. Get your shovel.
I just can't understand though why. I mean, he's $50,000 out of his own pocket. He's put into all this book and all, and I mean, you're talking to lawyers, you're talking to promoters. I mean, you're putting all this stuff in order and. Which he said, legally he cannot say if he's talked to him or not. So, like, I don't know. I want to believe so bad.
How do you know he spent all that money on the book, on all that stuff? How do you know he's not lying about that?
Right. I mean, at some point in time, you have to ask yourself, how much money did this dude make, and how much has he made in the past 10 years? I mean, did he have $50,000 to spend on this, or is this a way to increase book sales?
Yeah. Because, I mean, to tell you he's not making money on this book, he's full of shit. He's got to be. There's no reason that, you know, selling this book he wouldn't make money. Even if he went out and published it himself.
And I'm going to say that you don't accept the job as electronics store #1 owner in fucking Batman Forever if you have $50,000 just laying around. Okay? And this guy is getting, you know, piecework in Hollywood. Like, I don't know, dude. It seems unlikely.
Yeah.
Well,
Faye is crushed right now.
Like I said, I just so want to believe. It's hard to believe, but I want to believe. I really do. I would love to see Andy walk back out on some stage, and even if he doesn't even go back into Hollywood or do anything, just the point that he did it and pulled it off will be pretty freaking incredible. You got to admit.
Yeah, but think about what this guy's saying. He's like, oh, we got to work out the details because he might have to pay back the $4 million that went out. Like, what if that video went to YouTube? That would cover all the money that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Forget about the movie. Forget about the appearance in the 90 seconds. One video on YouTube of him would get enough clicks. He'd be able to pay all that money back.
You know what? Honestly, I really would rather say that this guy, rather than him believes this, is he's still trying to keep his friend relevant after all these years.
Well, I mean, he's done that. He's done a hell of a job.
Right. So, you know, it's a shame that after 30 years he's still riding the man's coattails. Wherever those coattails may be. But either way, you got one way to prove it, and that's the only way I would ever believe it. And I would humble myself and bow before him if it works out. But
absolutely, me too.
Absolutely, prove it. That's all you got to do. Just prove it. Bring him out. You know? Hell, there's people that still believe they see Elvis walking down the street.
Like I said at the beginning of the show.
You see Elvis walking down the street.
Yeah, right, many times over. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Andy and Elvis are in Montana, and they're on they have their own little Neverland ranch together, and yeah.
Yeah, and they're watching the Von Erichs wrestle, too.
No, they're not. They're watching Mob Wives.
Oh. I watched Mob Wives. They're not watching Mob Wives.
We got a caller, and I'm scared to take it.
Oh, yeah, I would be.
Is this the guy that knows proof, has proof that he's still alive?
I don't know. No, I don't know. Should I take it?
I don't know, but I feel for them. I mean, the dude said he didn't want to talk to them. That was it. You know what I'm saying?
He said he didn't want to talk to him. He didn't say anything about us.
That's true, Bay. He didn't say anything about us. I mean, if you want to get some of that evidence out there.
Here we go. I'm going to take the call, but I'm going to give the caller a heads up. If you start getting crazed and out of line or whatever, I'm just going to hang up on you. So let's see who this is. All right, you're live on Totally Driven Radio. Who's this?
I hope it's Moondog.
No, it's not Moondog. Hello, you there?
Hello.
Yeah, you're live on the radio.
Awesome. Hey, I just wanted to, call in real quick and kind of talk about the whole Bob Zmuda, Tony Clifton, Andy Kauffman thing,
Okay. First off, what's your name?
My name's
what's your
Tom
name?
Welch. Tom Welch.
Is this my boy Tom?
This is your boy Tom.
All right, cool. What's going on, Tom? So I don't have to worry about hanging up on you.
Not a whole lot.
And I know you were really looking forward to this. So what's your spin on this?
Man, I really think, in the back of my heart, I really want this whole thing to be true. Okay, I really do. I think that it would be the best thing ever, just period, ever.
Here comes a but. Go ahead.
Well, yes and no. But I do believe I do believe Andy is dead. I do think that this whole thing, the 20-year thing and then the 30-year thing, I really think that this is Andy's wish. This is what Andy wanted, was for people to remember him and constantly look over their shoulder or think in the back of their mind, well, maybe, because he did all this other stuff that was really out there. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he fucked with vertical lines on TV shows. Like, why would you do something so minute that nobody ever knew about? There was like 10 people that knew about that whenever it happened. Yet he thought it was the funniest thing ever. So if you look at it, why would he want to necessarily come back whenever, if something did happen to him, if he did pass? This is the whole thing of the aura of Andy and his antics, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
And a way that, what you're trying to say is, I can spin it this way, because I was thinking about this the other day. Billy Corgan was on Howard Stern the other day, and he was saying about, people like Hendrix and stuff like that who've, James Dean, whoever, who've passed early, and they're kind of they're stuck in time. You see them the way they died. They're that young, beautiful person or whatever, and they had that great body of work that was cut short. And he said they never had, where their life and their career was cut short, they never had the time to go through a long career where they had that rocky road and they put out them bad albums or them bad movies, and they were down in the dumps and then had to work to bring their career back up. None of them people had to go through that. Except maybe
I agree. Well,
okay, okay, but think about this. We're talking about a guy. Let's put it aside and say that this guy had the forethought to plan something like this, and he faked his own death, and he was out there, and you know, a couple years later or whenever, he had a heart attack. Don't you think that he would have had the forethought to maybe, like, record a video with some newspapers or something in case he died before he got to reveal the joke?
The only argument that I can think to that is if you go into hiding, even if you make the videos, nobody's going to know who you are.
Right, but I mean, a lawyer would come out afterwards and be like, hey, my client had this video and I watched it after he died, and it turns out he was Andy Kauffman. Holy shit. You know what I mean?
I got you. I see what you're saying. No, I mean, that makes sense. I don't know. I mean, I guess
it seems like he would plan something like that. I mean, we're talking about it, you know, if we're accepting the fact that he was, you know, sort of this master planner who was behind these elaborate tasks, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like he would plan for that.
Yeah, like, that's a good point there, too. I mean, like, he was this master planner. Well, like, what happens if he did pull this off and then he realized, like, what the fuck do I do now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Screwed.
And maybe, yeah, 30 years, maybe he is, if he is alive, maybe he's content in what he's become and what he's doing, and he's happy.
Right. That's true, too. I mean, there's been major advancements in the mental health industry in the last 20 years, so things could be different.
But
oh my God.
But I also think too, I when I kept seeing the previews for that movie Dumb and Dumber 2, where Jim Carrey's sitting in the wheelchair for 20 years, and he's just like, "You mean to tell me you've been playing a joke?" And he's like, "Uh-huh." Every time I saw that, I thought of Andy Kauffman.
Quick side note: I went to go watch that movie tonight. I walked out after half an hour because it was so dumb.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't stand it.
Title, didn't it?
Yeah, he told you that in the title.
But no,
that's funny.
I don't know. I feel like I want it to be true. I feel like I want it to happen for him to come back. But, you know, the realist part of me is, you know, he's gone, and this is the hoax. You know, the hoax of his death, of his non-death, is the hoax.
Right.
I wish they would just dig the grave up. If it's $800, I'll pay the freaking $800. I want to know. Like, I'm tired of waiting. Let's get this over and done. This can we just put this to rest now? To the Kaufman family, I'll give you the $800. Like, you know,
let's start with all of your listeners. Let's go start a GoFundMe.com campaign, and
how about that?
We can make this happen.
We'll start a GoFundMe campaign to dig up Andy Kaufman's grave.
You know, Nick and I were talking on the private message thing here, and maybe he's just happy being the king of Scientology, and the spaceship hasn't brought him back yet. It's possible.
It's possible. It is possible.
There you go.
Anything's possible. Or he's an actual cab driver in New York.
Now, I don't think he speaks Farsi.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Well, that's our first hour of controversy.